And so for me, that was a really difficult part of not playing anymore. And like, yeah, I missed.
Today's guest is two-time All-Conference defensive end from Miami University. Marcus Johnson is up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Before we dive deep into today's conversation with our guest, I want to thank you all for listening out there. All of your comments and your notes of encouragement, plus those official reviews, yes, you can go review us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, is what encourages me and helps me direct upcoming episodes and guests. I appreciate each and every one of you who take the time to listen to the episodes and to listen every week and to give me your feedback and encouragement. It's very much appreciated. So today, without further ado, today's guest is a former football player at Miami University in Ohio, where he was a two-time all-conference selection. He hails from Youngstown, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Marcus Johnson.
Hey, Sandy, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you. I always like a lot of the guests I've known, a lot of them I have not known, and I think that yours is a pretty unique story. So our previous guest, Brandon, and I've suddenly forgotten his last name.
Brandon Wright, one of my
Thank you.
favorite people in
Thank you.
real life and on social media. Brandon Wright. Make
Yes.
sure y'all follow him.
That's exactly right. I found him on LinkedIn through a mutual connection at the University of Memphis. So, Brandon is the head of the Career Center at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. In
That's
Memphis, we
true.
call that UAB, and we won't go there. And anyway, he was kind enough to suggest at least 20 people for me to interview, and you were one of them, and you were one of the first that reached out and said, "I'd love to do it." And I was like, "That's awesome! I love getting to know people." Um, and a lot of our episodes have been former basketball players, so I want to give as much love to football as possible, especially coincidentally with the Super Bowl this coming Sunday. So your episode will actually air after the Super Bowl, but that's okay. We can still talk football.
Did you
Uh,
know that I was a 49ers fan too? I'm actually a diehard 49ers fan.
I
So
did not.
this just feels right.
Okay, so for all of the Memphis fans out there, like a lot of Memphis guys are 49ers fans. I don't know why. It's kind of odd, I think, but so my feed on all my social media, especially Facebook, is like 49ers stuff everywhere. Um so coincidentally, yes, you're a 49ers fan. It fits right in. I planned this all myself, like everything. Okay, enough of that. So let's get started. You, I mentioned that you were from Youngstown, Ohio. So you're not in Youngstown now. Where are you living currently?
Now I'm in Birmingham, Alabama,
Yes. Home of UAB for us Memphis
home of
fans.
UAB, and that's how I know Brandon.
Yep.
Actually, I know Brandon from Orange Theory. Don't tell anybody, but I typically pace him at Orange Theory. So I'm normally running faster than him on the treadmills. And
Oh,
so he had never seen a big guy run that fast. So he pulled me to the side and said, "Man, how can I be like you one day?" And so that's how it sparked our relationship.
you
No,
know
I'm kidding.
that.
I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking.
Oh,
But
all right. I
I'm
was
kidding. I'm
believing.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I was believing that.
But we
Um,
did meet at Orange Theory. We did. But go ahead.
Okay, okay. And Brandon's one of those guys, like he's just a nice guy. Like I see him reaching out to everybody and just having conversations with them. And I wish more people would do that. So what do you do currently? You're in Birmingham, Alabama. What do you do for a living?
So I am a sales manager for a global robotics company. And I've been doing that surgical robotics. I've been doing that for the last almost 15 years.
Wow.
And so I know UAB medicine really well. I met Brandon on, of course, the academic side, but for the last 15 years, I've been in medical devices and leading a sales team.
Okay. And when you say surgical robotics, do you mean
Mhm.
robots that actually help perform the surgery?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Now they're completely, it's not like what my mom thought, right? My mom thought that like some robot came out of the closet, like like some sci-fi movie, and it kind of does the surgery while the surgeon sits in the corner and like checks emails. It is
Right.
100% surgeon controlled. The technology has been out over almost 3 decades, and every year, over almost over 1 million patients across the globe are treated through robotic assisted surgery. And my team, we're lucky enough to train surgeons and train nurses and support live surgeries using a robotic platform.
Okay. And have you actually been able to watch some of the surgeries with the robotics
I have
devices?
probably, whether you believe it or not, I've probably been in thousands of surgeries
Wow.
across maybe 10, 15 states over my career.
So what is the most interesting surgery that you got to witness?
Well, it depends. Are you are you looking gruesome? Are you looking just like
Not
anatomy wise? Depends on
n-
what you're into.
not really, like to you, which one kind of stuck out as the most interesting to you? It doesn't matter if it's gruesome or not, just for your perspective,
Interesting.
what was
Um,
interesting?
yeah, one of my favorite procedures is anything so transoral surgery or ENT surgery, anything so like the base of tongue cancer resections
Okay.
using our platform is a really interesting procedure. I think mostly because I think seeing it is really cool. Actually seeing the robotic arms essentially going through the patient's mouth to get to a cancer at the base of their tongue. I think that's interesting. But if you know the alternative for the patient, and the alternative is normally for those that are not like medically inclined, they have to essentially break the patient's jaw and kind of open up their face in order to gain access through traditional means. And so our technology allows that patient to avoid having such a major surgery and doing it in a minimally invasive fashion. So the recovery is better. Their pain tolerance, their use of narcotics, their return to normal activity is so much faster. So for me, when I think about what the alternative would be for a patient, that's hands down my favorite procedure that we do.
So is it because like a person's hand you can't reduce the size of a hand and the robotics arm you can actually make it really really small?
100%, 100%.
Okay.
We always tell surgeons, imagine we could do like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and we could shrink you down and put you inside of the patient, allow you to do
Sure.
all the surgeries you would normally do with your hands inside of a patient, but we just minimize everything down. We make your movements really precise. We take the tremor out of your hand, and we give you more independence and autonomy than you've ever had in surgery. Would
Right.
you be a better surgeon? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, absolutely.
That's really amazing. So I want to. So I always struggle with how to do these interviews, and I like to let the listeners out there kind of understand my thought. I used to start with, let's start at the beginning of your athletic career and go up to your fifth quarter. But what I find is that determining when that fifth quarter began and then go back and get up to that point. So, when did your fifth quarter begin? And was it an immediate thing or was it one of those tortured, slowly pulling the band aid off the skin kind of thing?
So it's such a great question, and you sent the pre-read, so I've had a chance to maybe reflect on it. Of course, I saw Brandon's interview, and I thought he did an amazing job. I would suggest that I was always trying to prepare for the fifth quarter. So,
Right.
like, there's this whole more than an athlete movement that like LeBron James is the face of,
Sure.
right? I've always did my best to be more than an athlete. My
Mhm.
grandfather, who was my mentor, my father figure, my hero, he used to he used to tell people, my grandson's going to be the president of the United States,
Right.
right? He used to always say things like that to complete strangers. That's how he introduced me from a very young age. Now, I haven't, been elected yet, but I think about it in terms of I was always taught to be more than what my body was capable of.
Sure.
And so I always took pride in being a student athlete. And so my fifth quarter, it was always in the back of my mind. Hey, what am I going to do after football? What am I going to do when this is all over? How am I going to be successful whenever that time comes? What happens
Right.
if I blow my knee out?
Right.
And so the fifth quarter was always at the top of my mind, but it wasn't until probably a couple like very specific moments when I actually had to put all of those kind of plans that I've been building over the years into action.
Okay. Okay. So we'll lead up to that. So let's talk about you grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. I've heard
Mhm.
that city's name quite a bit. I don't know why I get excited when I got to announce that. Um, but like what was it like growing up in Youngstown, Ohio? Was and it is a small town or is it kind of a medium-sized town?
It's a small town, and
Now
it's
now
uh
now you define small. I grew up in a
um
5,000 person town.
no, well, okay, it's not as small as that. I think if you look right now, I mean, Youngstown, the Youngstown Metroplex may have, I don't know, 100,000 people.
Okay. Okay.
So, not as small as 5,000,
Right.
like that is tiny, but when comparison to even a Birmingham, it's a pretty small town.
So you grew up in Ohio and you now live in
Hmm.
Alabama. There had to have
Hmm.
been some type of culture shock going into that.
Well, and then I had a stop in Dallas. So,
That's kind
um, yeah, I had a heck of a,
Texas is
I
a
had
whole
a,
nother thing.
I mean, I had a heck of a transition. But I think Birmingham and Youngstown surprisingly are more alike than not. Both kind of, blue collar
Right.
steel worker towns. Um, varying degrees of diversity. Kind of the universities kind of drive the
For
economy.
sure.
That's kind of what the both of those towns are. No, no major sports teams, not a major, major banking
Right.
underbelly, none of that. But so Youngstown, but Dallas, coming from Dallas to Birmingham, that was indeed the culture shock, right? When you're in a city like
Really?
Dallas, yeah, when you're in a city like Dallas, like this Dallas, not Dallas, like maybe the shows my mom watched growing up, the TV show. I'm talking
Yeah, I
about
watched
this
it
ain't,
too.
yeah, this ain't cowboy boots and 10-gallon hats, Dallas. This is multi-millionaires and
Right.
500 home master plan communities. This is
Right.
skyscrapers. This is cranes at every street corner. Dallas, that was a
Right.
part of this rapid growth and resurgence of people moving and businesses relocating from like California to Texas and Florida. That's the
So
Dallas I knew. So when you
so
go from that to Birmingham, things get real.
how long were you in Dallas?
Roughly about 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Okay. I lived in Houston for 16 years. So um
When did you
but
leave Houston?
I left Houston in 2020. I moved there in 2004.
Okay.
But my
Yeah.
sister, she lived in Dallas for 12 years. So I spent a lot of
Okay.
my teenage years, the summers in Dallas. Obviously, a different perspective as a teenager versus an adult.
Yeah.
Um, but Texas overall is just a different place.
Yeah.
Um, and just the Texas to Alabama thing. But let's talk about growing up. When did you first start playing football?
Oh, I mean, I think everybody in my neighborhood has only known football, right? Northeast Ohio. I mean, there's a laundry list of athletes, that come out of Northeast
Right.
Ohio. So, I think I started playing at 6, probably even 5.
Right.
Tackle football as soon as I could. I think my 6th birthday, we were already lacing up my helmet.
Oh my
So
gosh.
6 years old, I mean, we were playing football.
Did you play any other sports besides football?
I did. I actually thought I had basketball in my future,
Okay.
but I stopped going north and south and started growing like east and west. And, kind of, and when that happened, and I couldn't dunk, and I was like 6'2", and I kept rolling my ankles because I was so big. My high school football coach kind of went over to my mom and says, "Hey, I know he loves basketball, but football is going to
Right.
pay his bills," and it
Right.
was kind of like, "All right, we got to find something else."
So when did you do you well, let me do that. Do you remember a time when you just realized how much you love football? Or did you ever just love football?
Yeah, I've always loved the game of football. I've just always loved sports,
Right.
right? I think the thing that's helped me as a sales leader is the thing that helped me as an athlete, and it's the thing that kind of I think I was taught at an early age is that like the thing about sport is that it brings everybody together, and I
Yes.
love people, and I love connecting with people, and so being on teams, being in a locker room, competing against different people from different backgrounds, different experiences, I just always fell in love with sport. And then I fell in love with football when I realized that I could use like the intellectual side by
Mhm.
studying film, understanding formations, down and
Right,
distance, right? I could use that to be a better athlete because I wasn't the tallest, I wasn't the fastest, I didn't have, the best vertical, but
right.
I studied film like nobody's business, and I played hard, and that combination allowed me to have probably way more success in sport than I should have had just given my natural ability.
I think that today's teenager, I think that for them, it's not always about the mental aspect. I think a lot of times they just think if they have the natural ability, then it will take them far, but it's not going to take them far. They've got to put all the discipline and the analytics and all of that other stuff behind it. So for you, I think that also prepared you for life after sports because it was more than just the physical aspect of it. You were starting to think about strategy and you were starting to prepare and research and all of those traits that help you in all other kinds of careers. What was the recruitment like when you were in high school? Did you get recruited by a lot of colleges, and why did you end up choosing Miami University?
It's a great question, and I was fortunate, and I think it's because I was a true student athlete. I think that actually helped me even more
Mhm.
so in the recruiting process. Yeah, I had a number of big time college coaches tell me, "Hey, we're not going to have to worry about you in the classroom because you go to a Catholic high school where academics is first,
Right.
and you're a great student." And
Okay.
so,
I want to.
eh,
I
yeah,
want to
go ahead.
pause you 1 second. I want you to repeat
Yeah.
what you just said. Those coaches told you for any young people out there listening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, Sandy. College coaches used to say to me all the time in the recruiting process during that visitation period, they used to say, we don't have to worry about you in the classroom because of the type of student you are." And they
Mm.
talk to my coaches and they talk to, the principal, whatever, athletic director. And that's what they all would lead with is who
Right.
I was in the classroom and kind of how seriously I took being the captain of the football team, being one of the faces of the program,
Right.
being, a model citizen in the community and the brand, and my
The
family's last
brand.
name. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, right. And so for me, that helped me in the recruiting process. I think I got recruited by more schools because I was a true student athlete. I think about, schools like Northwestern. I think about schools like, Duke. I think about
Right.
Miami. These are academic first institutions that happen to have
Hmm.
varsity athletics. So originally, which is funny, very few people know this, except probably my college coach, high school coach, Jim Vivo, who is also like a father figure. Coach Vivo will know this. I actually got accepted. My initial commitment was to Wake Forest University,
Really?
another academic
Yeah.
institution, um, academic first institution. So I was going to go to Wake Forest. I think they actually put it in the Vindicator, the Youngstown newspaper. And what happened? All the coaches got fired.
Oh
So
my
I was
God.
sitting there and I'm going into the end of the season and I'm going to Wake Forest University in North Carolina. And the guys that were the whole staff that recruited me got fired.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I go back to my coach, I go back to my mom, I'm like, what do you do? I don't, and I'm thinking to myself, do I want to go to a school where they honor
Right.
the scholarship, but these aren't the people that believed in me?
Right.
And so I kind of opened it back up. Then it came down to the University of Cincinnati and Miami, mostly because I knew my family could come to all of our games, all of my games.
Yeah.
It was a 4 or 5 hour drive. They can
Right.
come to most of my games. If you played in the MAC, um, you know, that's pretty much a Midwestern conference. And
Right.
so I wound up choosing Miami, and that was the better choice. I still don't like UC to this day because that's our
I don't.
rivals.
I don't
But
either. So
right, right, right. See, I knew I liked you.
they were
Um,
rival. They're rivals
so
in Memphis.
so go Miami. But
That's
no,
right.
I chose Miami. It was the right choice. It was the right choice. I knew they would allow me to live out my athletic dreams, and I think academically, I got challenged every day, and I think that really set me up for the fifth quarter.
What was it like that first week on campus?
I think it's funny. As the student side of it was like, wow, this place feels bigger than I thought, even though it's not a huge campus,
Right.
and nobody cares that I'm on the football team or that I'm a student athlete. They don't care.
Was that
They,
a sh-
they
was that a
actually
sh-
don't
was
care.
was that a shock to your self-confidence or to like did it take you down a notch? Like did it even affect you? Like
I don't think it definitely didn't affect me as much as maybe some of my teammates,
right.
but it definitely shocked me because I was like, it was, people used to, we the players growing up that were, honor roll and National Honor Society and English merit scholars, all those things, but also were all conference, also
Right.
getting athletic scholarships. I mean, we were kind of, I won't say like put on a platform, but
Right.
people had a lot of respect for us because they knew how hard we had to be working and how talented we had to be to do both. But when you
Sure.
go to school like Miami, Miami's like, hey, outside of Ben Roethlisberger, the rest of y'all, yeah, y'all gotta go to class and y'all gotta turn that paper in. And the workload in when you're majoring in psychology and trying to play Division I football can be a lot. And so as a student, it was heavy. As an athlete, I walked in and I got a chance to see, just an incredible group of athletes, like people that were also
Right.
at Miami that probably should have been at Alabama. Martin Nance, who was one of my teammates, he's now with a VP of marketing VP at the Minnesota Vikings. I think about Turner Nande. Turner got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. He's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. John Beesing, one of the best athletes I've ever seen. And these individuals are also amazing students, but they just happen to be these brilliant athletes. And so when you like, it was a humbling experience that
Sure.
first month on campus, both academically and as an athlete.
So let's talk about you chose psychology. Why did you choose psychology for your major?
So I wanted to be an organizational psychologist. Like organizational psychology, Sandy. It's like, hey, it's the Google campus, right? The Google campus in Silicon Valley kind of revolutionized how we look at a corporate headquarters. They
Right.
had a daycare. They had they had dry cleaners on site. They had a gourmet or kitchen and chef in the cafeteria. So that is like, improved ways of working and improve the corporate working experience. And so for me, that just seemed interesting to me. That just seemed different to me. And I chose it because I always wanted to challenge myself. I was always enamored with how people thought, how the things that are around us make us feel, how if you inspire somebody, they'll be more productive. They'll feel better about, more engaged. And
Mhm.
that's essentially what organizational psychology was. And so for me, I think it was just, me scratching I could think my scholastic or my intellectual itch while
Mhm.
also trying to maximize my physical ability.
So let me ask you this because this actually um, interests me a little bit because you're a freshman in college and you've already had these thoughts and processes in your head. And you'd already started thinking about how things affect people and how people feel change how they react or they act. What were your parents or your grandfather? What did they do? The people around you, what were they doing for jobs for a living?
Yeah, it's a great question. So um, I was the first person in my family to graduate with a 4-year degree. My grandfather was a steel worker. My grandmother worked in manufacturing plant. My mother um, works has worked in a hospital, but actually it's so funny. Super proud of her. My mother just actually graduated with her degree in the last 60 days. And so watching
Aw.
this, I am super proud of you because to me, Even though growing up, I wasn't surrounded by PhDs, MBAs, or heck, bachelor's degrees. Academics was always a priority, and it always came first in my family. And the expectations and the bar for us children was incredibly high. And even though they didn't reach those levels, they expected us to,
Sure.
right? Like a great story, like where my mom kind of set the tone for me. So here I am living out my hoop dreams, right? And I'm playing in an AAU tournament in the summer going into my freshman year. I'm averaging 25 plus points, 15 rebounds, big summer tournament. I knew private school coaches in the area were coming to the game. I get a C. C as in cat, not D as in dog, not on the final. I get like a midterm C. Like I got time to fix it. My mom gets that report because the teacher knew my mom. That's how important academics were in this small
Right.
town to my mom. So they call her and say, "Hey, Marcus has a C." And it's not that he has a C. The teacher's like, he has a C because he's not applying himself. We know he knows this information. We know he's
Right.
smart. He's not applying himself. So my mother held me out of the tournament,
Oh my
like say, you're
God.
not playing. And I remember the coach coming to my house in a not so nice neighborhood and knocking on the door and asking my mom, "Can Marcus play? Can you just let him play?" And she said no. And it was that moment where it was like, okay, um, I thought
Right.
academics was serious. Academics is truly serious. And here's my mom drawing a line in the sand and putting a mark on my memory to make me realize
Right.
that there were no excuses, no exceptions. I had to put academic first. And from there on, I don't think I got to see all the way through college.
Shout out to the moms out there because,
Heck
um,
yeah.
I mean, seriously, because, like I grew up, my mom could just like give me a look and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to be in
For
so much
sure.
trouble, but, I'm interested though into when did you when did you first start realizing about the correlation between how you can make somebody feel and change how they react or how they perform? Like when did that start taking a seed in your head to transform that into a college degree?
Yeah, I think so I would suggest that like it started with me. So when you're not the tallest, you're not the strongest, you're not the fastest, don't jump the highest. Um, confidence in yourself makes a difference in how you perform.
It
Like
does.
just I figured out about me. Like when I watched film, even in high school, when I said the guy across from me, the tackle across from me has slow feet. I'm like, oh, like my confidence was spiked that week because I knew I had a chance. I was like, I'm gonna have a good game
Right.
this week. But if I was playing across from a kid that was a 4 star, 5 star, and he had offers from West Virginia and Ohio State, and he had a span, I was like, okay, this my
Right.
confidence wasn't as high. I was like, man, I might have a tough night.
Right.
And so I think it started there, but then, as a leader, certain personality types, people always say, "Oh, you're a natural leader. People naturally follow you." But then you start to realize like how your words, how you
Hmm.
speaking into people, how you motivating people, inspiring people, instilling confidence in people, how it then translates into them performing better, them playing harder, them being
Right.
more locked into the team's ultimate goal. Like that, those things, it started with me, and then I realized I can transfer that to other people and to teammates. And I think it was that combination that said, okay, there's something to the mental side of this. And I think that's what sparked my interest in psychology.
So you're going through college, and I just want to say that you guys won two championships, I believe,
Oh yeah.
two
Oh yeah.
conference. So
Finished number 10 in the AP poll. The year Ben's last year. Won the conference, beat the Louisville Cardinals in a bowl game, North Carolina that
woohoo!
year,
Yeah.
Northwestern that year. Yeah, yeah, we were all right. We were all right.
I always like to give those shout outs because, I know you guys aren't obviously playing football any longer, but, you guys, all of you, you had accomplishments. And even though they were a few years ago, it doesn't matter. I'd like to bring those up and celebrate those again, and teach, everybody else out there that what it's all about. So let's talk about. So did you actually want to go and play in the NFL? You're in college. You did not.
No, of course.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
sorry. Of
okay.
course I did. Of course
You're
I
like
did.
shaking your head.
Because
No.
people, well, Sandy, people, it's funny. People always ask me that. They're like, you didn't want to go to the league? It's like, are
Oh.
you serious? Who did? No, no, I just, they called me, the Patriots called me. They just wouldn't leave me alone. And I was like, man, I'm busy. I want to go to corporate America. What you mean, Bill Belichick? No, I don't want to play for the Patriots, win Super Bowls. Man, I want to go have a 401k. Like,
That's
of
right.
course.
So
Of course
so
I
when
did.
did you have teams out there recruiting you, paying attention to you, calling you up? What was that process like before you got into the year that you were drafted, or not drafted, but the year that you would have gone into the draft or did go
Yeah,
into the
you get
draft?
you get the pre-draft evaluations, right? You get those your junior year. You see, scouts are always on campus. They're
Right.
either at practice, they're watching film. Your coaches tell you, they come up to you, they're watching you closely in drills and in games, like
Right.
and I mean, and then the other side of it, even though we didn't have the information wasn't as readily available to us
Sure.
back then as it is now for athletes, but we had all the magazines. We knew the websites that we can go to and figure out kind of how teams were viewing us as a prospect. And so,
Right.
I felt it like going into my, coming off my junior year, unanimous, all conference selection. Um, I knew I was one of the best players in the conference. I knew I could play at a high level. My film was good. Going
Right.
into my senior year, I was like, hey, if I put together another campaign like that, yeah, I absolutely got a shot at the league, no question. And I was fortunate. Like I said, I got a chance to play with some really top-notch, highly graded
Right.
prospects like Martin Nance and Turner Nande, John Beasing. So I knew that as long as if I could put together a senior year like I did my junior year, being in the same class as those individuals would help me land an opportunity in the pros.
Right. So how did your senior year go?
So I actually got hurt my spring before my senior year.
Okay.
I had to have surgery. So I had surgery early summer,
Okay, what
rehabbed.
wait a minute. What
Yeah,
was hurt? What was hurt?
I had a hernia.
Oh,
I
okay.
wound up having hernia surgery, which kind of, of course, it shortened my kind of sports performance training that
Sure.
summer going into my senior year. But I was relatively healthy going into the season. On paper,
Right.
100%. In hindsight, probably 80%.
Right.
And I probably played the whole season, not quite myself, but I still had a really good year. I was still all conference, still, I think I was a defensive MVP for the team. I still had a solid year, but I don't think I had the same year I would have had without the injury.
Okay, so your senior year comes and goes, and now we've got the draft looming up. So what transpired between then and not getting drafted?
Yeah. So, again, I think it's the just the mental side of, I said it earlier. It's like I'd always been preparing for the fifth quarter. So,
Right.
I have, not the senior year I thought I would have, but I had a good year. I signed with an agent. I get recruited by agents. I think there was 3 or 4 agents kind of that had interest in me and wanted me to sign with them. I wound up signing with an agent. I moved to St. Louis. I got, nutritionist. I got a sports performance coach, track coach, drills
Oh,
coach.
wow.
I'm there for 3 months. And, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm here for 3 months. Then we got pro day because I didn't get drafted, invited to the combine. I said, we got pro day. All the teams are going to be there. I said, I'm gonna disappear. I'm about to disappear for 90 days for three
Right.
months. And I said, I want to get to that pro day and be in the best shape of my life, know all these drills like the back of my hand, and put my best foot forward. And so that's what I did. And I was in the best shape of my life. I was in the best conditioning of my life. I probably was really close to 100% recovered from that injury. And I didn't get drafted. I didn't get drafted. Teams were calling leading up to it, and I didn't get drafted. And then free agency came, didn't sign with anybody. And so it's fifth quarter.
So let's talk about, because you make it sound really simple when you just went through that last part. Pro day comes, draft comes, free agency
That's
comes.
after a lot of therapy. I've had a lot of
I,
therapy.
I know we make it
That's who
that,
does that. It's healing. I've been healing. Yes.
but that's not what the everyday aspect was like. So what were your days like? You've spent those 90 days getting into the best condition of your life. And then what did your days consist of? Were they a lot of ups and a lot of downs, or was there a lot of downs? Like, what was that mentally on you, and what did you do with your days as you waited?
Yeah. So, in we're in the process of that 90 days. I mean, all your days are scripted. That's the good part.
Right.
You're waking up, you have your alarms going off super early in the morning, and you got to eat, you got to
Sure.
fuel your body. That's all scripted out for you. You got your first workout of the day. The workouts are long. You got physical therapy. You got sports massages. You got there's like speed and agility training in half of the day in the morning. Then you go to your PT, and then at night you got like weights, and then you're getting back to wherever you're living, and it's pretty late at night. And again,
Right.
for me, I was so hyper locked in. I wasn't going out. I wasn't
Right.
partying with the rest of the prospects. I was like, okay, I want to sleep. So
Right.
my body's completely recovered, so I can wake up tomorrow and give it 100% every single day. Because again, I didn't want to have any regrets, and so that's what like every day looked like. And we were doing that 6 or 7 days a week, leading up to our trials, pro days, combine. If they had been invited to a combine, and so it was some 12, 14, sometimes
Right.
16-hour days of that over the course of that almost 3 months.
So after the 3 months, did you know then that you weren't going to get drafted at all?
I didn't, Sandy. I didn't, because teams were calling. Teams were calling. They were in contact with my agent. I had great film. I thought that mattered. Like, I did. I was like, I could play though. Like, I was like, I could really play. And I thought that stuff mattered. I really did, man. And it was devastating to know that I was still a half inch too short. My wingspan wasn't quite long enough. My 40
Right.
was a couple tenths too slow. My vertical wasn't quite as high. Like, even though I put out a lot of great film and people knew I could play, I just didn't fit. I knew physically, I had always
Right.
known this,
Right.
that
Right.
physically, I just didn't have the natural gifts. And I blame my mother for that. My mother had no hops. She had no hops. She couldn't dunk. I blame her. And I think I was premature. I told her, I was like, if you would have just kept me in the oven, I'd have been 6'4", 6'5", and you would have had a first round draft pick. I said, it's completely your fault.
So what was the day? Do you remember a day when you
Yeah.
just decided, I give up? I give up on my dream.
I would actually rephrase that. I don't
Okay.
give up. I pivot.
You
I
pivot.
pivot.
Yes, you pivot.
I emotionally pivoted. It was a time to emotionally pivot, and I remember
Nice.
sitting on my mom's couch. She had one of them floral couches that I think every
Right.
parent had, and I'm sitting on her couch, and um, the draft was over. Free agency period was kind of winding down,
Right.
and I'm sitting there, and the house was like really quiet, and my mom was like peeking around the corner, like, "Is he okay?" Not knowing what to say. She's praying over me. I think she was putting like, holy water on me. I don't know what she
Right.
was doing. But she was afraid to say anything, right? My friends were
Yeah.
calling and like texting, like, hey man, how's it going? You hear anything? And I had that moment. My agent called me and he was like, all right, plan B. He was like, I got a bunch of like Canadian and arena teams calling. And I want you to try out for Connect Canada or the Arena League. And I said, man, come on. I was like,
Right.
I'm out. I was like, I ain't that guy. I'm out. I attacked the pre-draft process the way I did for a reason, so I
Yeah.
could get to this point. And when teams told me it was over, I could pivot. I could emotionally check out of that and check into my fifth
Right.
quarter, my corporate career. And so I told my agent, I said, man, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for investing in
Aw.
me. But I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
out, man. I was blessed to, my mother, like she cried. Everybody
Aw.
was all sad. And I was just like, it's okay.
Right.
I will fulfill a lot of those dreams and promises another way.
Now, did you graduate from Miami in 4 years, or did you have to go back and finish some
I
classes?
graduated. I
Okay.
graduated
And
4 years.
which is not a common thing for athletes.
Mm-mm.
They don't
It's not.
always they don't always graduate in the 4 years, but good for you. Um, so so then, like, how did you deal with the stress and everything of that whole summer? You had your mom, you had other friends, but did you have any really close moral support that helped you? Because a lot of athletes just don't have anybody necessarily. And when those professional career options get shut down, a lot of people just kind of leave them.
Well, Sandy, I think, and you're probably figuring this out because of this amazing podcast. But I think what I realized is the number of people who me going to the pros was their dream too.
Yeah,
Like they were they were as emotionally invested in me making
that's
it to
right.
the pros as anyone
Because
else.
they're living their
Like,
dreams through you. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't projected to go number first round, but the number of people that were calling me out of the blue and sending me gifts and stopping by my mom's house while I
Oh
was
my God.
like it there are people who are hoping that you make it because
Right.
if you make it, if they make it, maybe you help them get out of whatever
Yeah.
situation they're in. And so it's a very lonely time because it's like, all right, so I was thinking about this. You know how you might be in a relationship with someone, y'all get into a fight, y'all get into a fight or disagreement, and
Right.
you tell somebody in your family, you might forgive the person, but your family doesn't.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's how it kind of was with athletics and with this dream. I had I had moved on. They were still
Wow.
upset and heartbroken.
That's right.
And so I had to constantly tell people, "Hey, I'm okay."
That's a
And
great
then it
analogy
finally
there. That really is a great analogy.
it yeah, but it clicked that they weren't okay. I was good. I had a degree from a great school in like a real degree. And they were struggling because they had plans for my career too.
Wow. So when did you go get your first job? Like, did you go out the next day and like, okay, let me go look for a job? Like, how did you get from the couch in your mom's house to your first corporate job?
I probably, and I kid you not, I probably didn't sleep for 48 hours after I didn't get drafted or signed. I was awake for almost
Wow.
2 straight days and I was emailing. So again, this is a plug for Miami University. If you're out there and you are thinking about choosing a school, you go to Miami. Here's why. So what I loved about Miami was every spring we had these giant career fairs.
Yes.
All these top schools would come, and I would no matter what was going on, I went to the career fairs. I would go sometimes with like dirt from practice on my legs because I would I would run from the stadium to get to the conference center where these
Sure.
career fairs were because I wanted to make these relationships just in case, right?
Right. Right.
So when I didn't get drafted and I didn't get signed, I literally for that 48 hours, and I'm telling you, I went into full blown like recruiting the recruiters and touching base with all the companies that had shown interest in me, that I had informal interviews with that said, hey, if you don't make it, something doesn't work out with sports, reach out to me. So that's exactly what I did. I reached out to those people. And I
And
mean, I sent resumes and I responded to old emails. And I'm telling you what, by the end of that week, I had like multiple interviews for corporate jobs.
and were those in organizational psychology or were they in something else?
So as a part of that emotional pivot, like I would have had to go back to school and get my PhD.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was
Mhm.
like, all right, here I am. I got a degree, but I'm broke and I don't my mother's couch is not very comfortable,
That's right.
and I don't know how this gonna work. I don't want to ask my mother for money. I gotta do something. So
Right.
I wasn't going to go to school for 2 more years and be broke, pile up debt.
Sure.
I'm like, I gotta go get a job, and I'll figure out if this thing I got for psychology is worth investing in myself later on. And so, no, I didn't. I went into, I reached out to a bunch of companies, wound up getting a job in the executive development program for Macy's and Bloomingdale's. And retail was actually my first job. Then I went to Eli Lilly and Company, so I was in pharmaceutical sales. And then I wound up at my current company, which I'm not saying their name because I'm not quite sure if I can. I didn't get that memo
Oh,
whether I
okay.
could or
Yeah.
not. I don't know how, I never know how they roll, but if you're on my LinkedIn page, you'll figure
That's
it
right.
out very
That's right.
quickly.
That's right.
But yeah, and then I wound up with them, and I've been here since 2010. So yeah, it was one of those things where I wanted to cast a wide net. I wanted to see how people viewed my talent outside of sport,
Hmm.
and I just had a bunch of interviews, and the executive development program at Macy's felt right.
Well, and also I think that your college degree, and I say this for almost every college degree, the fact that you have a college degree, I think does a lot for people because you learn a lot of things. But I would think, especially your degree, I think that that would help you in in pharmaceutical sales, but also in any other type of leadership role. Just that psychology part, in the organizational part. Was it hard for you to not play football anymore?
This is I'm not going to cry, but this is a really emotional like thought for me. It's something that some of the people I have a ton of respect for, some of my closest friends, former teammates. It's something we talk about all the time. I don't think people realize that a lot of struggles that especially deal with after their athletics career is over is the outlet for their emotions.
That's right.
And I genuinely, when you're allowed to like run full speed and hit another human as hard as you can,
Hmm.
like you get out a lot, right? And so when you're done playing, a lot of those same emotions that you have and feelings and even traumas that are not healed, that haven't figured out a constructive way to address, they're still inside of you.
Right.
So I said it jokingly earlier about like I've had a lot of therapy, but like yeah, I
Yeah.
have. Like I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent in I have a psychology major.
That's
So
right.
I'm a big proponent in talking to professionals and helping them sort out things you don't quite understand. And so for me, that was a really difficult part of not playing anymore. And like, yeah, I missed Marcus Johnson on the tackle and the
Sure.
roar of the crowd. I missed all that too. I missed being on the planes and the
Right.
buses with my teammates. I missed
It's a
all that stuff
family.
too.
It is a family atmosphere.
Like nothing, if you haven't played sport, if you haven't been on a team in a locker room, if you haven't traveled
Yeah.
to an away game, you don't get it. You will
Right.
never get it. But there was that other side that no one ever talks about. Like, what is the outlet for all those emotions and
Sure.
feelings? And like, and so yeah, that's that other side of it. And that was more difficult than playing itself for
Sure.
me.
No, a lot of athletes, men and women on here have talked about, you know, that emotional aspect of not of leaving something they've loved, they've worked their entire life for, and not getting to do it anymore. And we've had some people that said they couldn't even walk into a basketball gym anymore. And I interviewed the whole staff of the University of Memphis women's basketball team, and several of them had just left their sport like 3 or 4 years ago, and how difficult it was, and they were having trouble, watching girls play basketball and not being able to do that. What outlets did you find to kind of help balance yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think being in sales helps. It's a competitive environment.
Hmm.
When you have a sales number, no sales leader is going to ever, stop you from
Right.
working hard, burning the midnight oil,
Right.
running really fast towards your results, right? So there was a competitive element in high level medical sales, so that helped. You think about things like CrossFit. I got into CrossFit really heavy early on in my post athletic career. I was still young. My joints were still pretty good back then.
Right.
And so CrossFit helped. It was another, again, and one of those competitive environments, it felt like
Sure.
off-season conditioning all the time, all those Olympic lifts, throwing weights around, people grunting and stinking and screaming like that.
Right.
It felt like something I knew. Um, yeah, I think those two places felt a lot like the adrenaline rush that you got from playing sport.
Right.
Um, I think those were probably the two. And I think fundamentally for me, I think the dreams that I had, you know, growing up, hey, I want to buy my mom a house. I want to buy my
Right.
mom a car. I want to travel the world. I want to do all these things. Like still done all those things.
Right.
Like, and I'll probably do those things a few times over, probably more than the average professional football player. Like everybody knows the Tom Brady's, the
Exactly.
Patrick Mahomes is of
Right.
the world, but like they're the top 1%. The folks that play for 3 years or only make the practice squad and then never play again, they're 25 years old. What are they going to
Right.
do with the rest of their life? I have a much longer runway and a much lucrative career and earning potential in corporate America. And so when I figured out that through success in corporate America, I could still do a lot of those things, and I've been fortunate to check a lot of those boxes through
Right.
by using my mind and not my body.
Right. And you've probably kept your injuries down, which has actually been,
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah,
People talk about, Tom Brady's obviously an exception, but you think about the guys that played for 10 years in the NFL and the injuries and everything they sustained and just like how hard it is on their body. And then they just can't really enjoy life as much because they hurt all the time. You know,
yeah.
um,
I mean,
t-
yeah,
talking about the Super Bowl coming up, which this will air after the Super Bowl, but um, what's his name? Travis Kelsey. He talked about
yeah.
how much he hurts every week and he just kind of tries to ignore the pain,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's a lot of, you know, hardship on your body and you probably got more enjoyment out of life since you left football. And I do thank you for bringing that up about the emotional aspect of, where do you put your energy when you leave the sport? Because I think that a lot of people go through that. They just don't talk about it. And I appreciate you
Oh yeah.
bringing that up and really, kind of diving into that. Um, what do you think that your biggest value is to others today?
I would suggest it's my willingness to help people. I think any way I can. It's kind of unbelievable the number of strangers I talk to every day or every week,
Yeah.
Sandy. People that just inbox me on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, can you help me break into medical sales?" Or, "Hey, I got this interview coming up. Can you, run a few questions by me or give me a few questions to prepare for or think about?" And but I think it's my willingness to help people and understand where people are and where they're trying to go. And if I have the ability to shorten that path, the fact that I do it is probably the thing that I hope makes, my mom proud, makes my family proud, makes my friends proud. Like that's the thing that I would suggest I offer.
Okay, and now the last question. What would you tell a 10-year-old Marcus?
Have more fun. Have more fun
Oh,
is what I would tell a 10-year-old Marcus. I think when you go to a private school, I think especially when this is geared towards a lot of athletes that are making the transition or have being forced even to make the transition, thinking about whether they should or not. When you are playing sports at a very high level, it actually starts normally at a very young age. You kind of
sure.
identify those kids. You're like, he or she's taller than everyone else. She's just faster than everybody. She gets all the goals. He's just a big kid, right? And
Right.
so the game gets really serious at a very young age, unfortunately. And I would tell 10-year-old Marcus to have more fun with the game and with life so that when the game is done and you just got life, you don't have to teach yourself how to have fun and take things less seriously.
No, that's great advice out there because, kids, athletes, they're so focused on that one thing for so much of their life and they put everything else to the side that you give up, you sacrifice a lot. I also have wondered, is it possible to be a high level athlete playing in professional sports for a long time if you're not completely focused and absorbed in your sport? Is that
I,
kind of, is that you either choose to have a life or you choose to have a sport? It's kind
yeah,
of like,
it's funny. I think you can do both, Sandy. I think because so here's a good example, right? I think corporate America is a good example because
mhm,
in a lot of ways, when you get to a certain level in your corporate career, the demands on you intellectually or demands on your time, it's probably a better way of saying it,
right.
are incredibly high. And but then if you have things outside of work in corporate America, those demands can be really high too.
Sure.
So the buzz phrase is, work life balance. Everyone's talking about how to achieve work life balance. And but you got to be able to separate yourself from the things and be what I talked to my team about is how do you be where your feet are? If you're at work,
Oh,
be
that's a
at
good
work,
one. Yeah.
right? Be really locked in and engaged at work. If you're at home with your friends and family doing the things you love outside of corporate America, be there, fully locked in, having fun, present, phone off, computer
Right.
closed. So to me, like I think it's the same thing. You can be a high level athlete. Look at Travis Kelsey,
Yeah.
right? Look at LeBron James. LeBron James is somebody I played against growing up in football and basketball. He's from
Are you
Akron. I'm from
serious?
Youngstown.
Oh my
Now,
God.
yeah, I'm sure there's somewhere that he's flying past me in an Ursuline gymnasium or catching a slant when he was playing football. But when you look at him, I think he's the best example for these young people. LeBron is an incredible father and
Hmm.
husband and man of the community, but he's also one of the greatest basketball players to ever lace
Hmm.
them up. You can be both. You
Yeah.
can really be both. It just takes the same level of focus you put on the court and on the field. You got to put that same level of focus off of it, and you can actually be both.
Sure. No, that's great advice there at the end. I appreciate that. Marcus, thank you so much for being on today's show and sharing this unique perspective as a former athlete. Everyone's story is different, and I truly believe that yours can be inspiring to so many people out there as they prepare. Whether you play sports or not, this it's something that I have really come to realize is that, you know, guests on the show are athletes or former athletes, but it's really about career, finding your passion, finding out who you are, transitioning from one career to the other one. And it's all about, that work life balance and finding out how to discover your next passion and how to put that into perspective and help everybody that you come in contact with. So, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
As we wrap up this episode, thank you all for listening, sharing our episodes, and your comments and show reviews. I appreciate each and every one of you for all the support. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast with our guest, former football player Marcus Johnson from not from Miami University. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week.